radios. I'm just going to kind of give a rundown of all the different like systems and licenses and what they benefit. So I'm going to start at like the cheaper end of the spectrum. Honestly, this could probably stay on the table, but this here, this is a really old FRS radio. I'm just going to use this to represent like all FRS radios. So what's good about them, like pros, these are going to be relatively cheap. I know some of the Motorola ones are very expensive, but they're going to be license free, so you won't need to get like a license, or you won't need to do anything with the FCC. They're pretty simple as well. You'll have like your channels that you'll be able to go through. This one doesn't work, but the FRS is similar to the GMRS frequencies. I think they're exactly the same actually, but so these are like going to be have like 1 through whatever, however many channels they have. And it's really just simple. You tell them, hey, go to this channel, and they can turn to it, and then it's the same thing. You can have that similarly set up to other devices as well, but these are going to be your cheapest bet. Some of the cons are going to be definitely your actual like power on these. They're like, I think they're 1 watt is like the max. You're not really going to reach out far. You're going to have a very tough time talking to people at further distances. They don't really offer that much in terms of capability, or I guess like privacy or encryption or anything like that. They don't offer that. They're really just cheap bubble pack radios that you could buy at like Walmart or other places like that. Hand them out to people, and they really can't cause too much damage, and they can't really mess it up too much. It's pretty simple. You just push the power on button if this had a battery in it, which this does not. But if you just push the power on button, you go to the correct channel as everybody else, and you'll be able to talk to each other, which is really what you'd want in a radio. So these aren't too bad. Definitely easier to just kind of hand out to give to people, and they can't really mess it up too bad. You could lock them as well. A lot of these offer that, so you can't change the channel. You can give them to kids and stuff, and they won't cause any issue. Next up, I'm going to put, this is a UV5R. There's actually probably more in attachments on this than there is for the actual value of the radio. But what's good about these is that they're cheap, they're abundant. There's a lot of different aftermarket stuff, like this is a 3D printed push-to-talk guard. There's a lot of different pieces you can get, and they're all relatively cheap. Like I said before, I believe this is probably gonna run you about like $20 for a radio like this, which is 5 watt. It's a ham radio. So people say some things about like spurious emissions and stuff like that. Sure, they do occur. I think some of the older ones had that worse. It's a little bit better now. But so with this, you get a 5 watt. You got the GMRS frequencies on here. But so these are really easy to use radios. Similar, they could be channelized, or you could have your VFO mode, which you could do, big orange button, and you could see that it's got all these different, you're able to basically just punch a number in. It's like 150 or 140 or whatever. You can punch it in like that. Or if you have the like pre-knowledge of it, what you're going to want to do, you could set it, put a frequency in, and then you're able to just listen to that. Like these are on, you can listen to GMRS frequencies on these. You're not allowed to transmit on them, but you can listen to GMRS, FRS frequencies, weather band frequencies, I believe you could do. And even to an extent, I believe this has an FM radio on it somewhere. I forget which button it is to do that. Oh, that's the flashlight. But I think there is there's also FM radio as well. So you could do that if you wanted to. But they're pretty versatile little radios, and for the price, you really can't do too much better than that. They're very similar to the FRS radios in terms of like actual, like I guess like functionality, but they get more power, so you're able to put out 5 watts on these. Some of them go up to 10 watts, but they are again ham radios, so that does require a license. That requires like licensing, and that requires you to pay a fee and to take a test. Which some people may not want to do, but I believe that like the capability step up from these, from the FRS radios, you could do repeaters. You can hook up like GMRS repeaters, even though this isn't a GMRS radio, but you can hook up GMRS repeaters to this and listen to them, or listen to them. But you're able to do a lot more on that. And then this is another little radio here I got. This is a different type of radio system within the United States. This is a CB radio. It's very big and bulky, but this is able to go on the like I think it's 27, 26 megahertz range. So it is a public system, so it's all free, no licenses. You just kind of turn it on, and it's channelized as well. So you have up to, I think it's like 48 or something like that. How many channels? Is there 40 channels? Yeah, it's 40 channels. It's 40 channels. You get the 40 channels, and here's what you're able to do is talk on those channels. Only issue with this is, I guess, actually, I didn't really mention it with the FRS radios, is that you're going to notice if you try to use these, there's a chance your channel will be like overtaken, like someone else will be able to TX on it, And I think a lot of like truckers and a lot of people, like car people that are in a car with a CB radio, a lot of them also have like amplifiers hooked up, so you're going to be getting people from like other parts of the country even on your channel, and it might prevent you from kind of picking up some other weaker signals because they'll be there. Other than that, they're a pretty good radio system. I recommend having one just because it could be it's more commonly used. So in theory, if like you wanted to, you can transmit on this to talk to somebody else if like an emergency or something like that. Similar to this with the GMRS and FRS frequencies, you could do that on this if it's an emergency. So I think that's also a beneficial system to have as part of these analog ones, because later I'll get into digital stuff. Analog radios, you're able to more people can hear you. That could be a benefit, and it'll also be a negative. If you're able to be heard by more people, you can get a message out if you wanted to, but also if you didn't want other people to hear your message, that's going to be harder to do with these type of radios. Honorable mention, I guess, right here. Drop something, but this isn't like an SDR. So you can get these SDRs, and they basically plug into a computer, and you're able to transmit, or not transmit, you're able to receive on a whole wide of frequencies. There are some SDRs that can transmit as well. One of the later radios I'm breaking up is an SDR based radio, but this is a really useful tool because of how wide it's really able to go really wide in the frequency. I know this one could do like HF frequencies as well. You need a big antenna for it, but it can do HF frequencies. This here is the I think it's the Quang-Shang UVK8 or something, UVK6, and that's like 8 in it. I forget the exact model specific, but what's cool about it is that it's able to get a aftermarket firmware on it that allows you to listen to, like, if I go to the actual VFO mode, you can listen to very low frequency. I forget what the lowest one is. 18 megahertz, it looks like 18 megahertz. So you're able to go to really low, like HF frequencies, and I think it is potentially able to do some like single sideband stuff as well, and AM stuff, but I wouldn't really use it for that. And you can't really transmit on these out of band frequencies because of the circuitry. I think is definitely more meant for the 2 meters, 70 centimeters bands. So it's gonna cause a lot of spurs, which is not good. A lot of your energy is gonna be wasted. You're not actually gonna be able to make a contact with it. So I wouldn't recommend doing that, but it does give you the option to listen to CB frequencies. Yeah, well, CB frequencies is really the only HF one that I can think of off the top of my head, but it is a pretty neat radio system, and they're not that much more than the Baofeng, but they do offer a lot more capability. So you can also, like I said, hook it up to chirp and use the same thing, so you can have same frequencies across the two, so you're able to use them, and it's interoperable with Baofengs, but it also has that extra capability. It's a lot more specific though, so if you want to use it for a system that is like I wouldn't give that to somebody unlocked. They could cause a lot of problems with it, and they could like create like spurs and stuff, and I think some of the spurs are even in like the airband, which I believe they're a lot more protective over. This is my little Mesh-tastic radio. There's 2 antennas on here. They both have the exact same antenna, even though I think one of these is a GPS thing. I don't really care about GPS because I don't want to use it for that. But anyway, this is just going to represent like Mesh-tastic radios. So what does this do that this one doesn't do? This one does data, so it's messaging and stuff like that. In theory, it could be long-range messaging for longer than what you can get on this, because of the actual like way that it modulates the signal is able to be picked up better at like lower decibels. So it's able to be heard under the noise floor. A lot of digital stuff can do that as well, but that's mainly its main benefit is that it's able to do that. So it could go long range, and it does data. This is a Mesh-tastic though, so it really can't do a lot of data. Its throughput is very small, mainly for like messages and stuff like that, similar to like FT8 or other systems like that, to where it'll send out a spurt of data, and that'll be a message. And it could take you quite a while to get a message through, but that could also be useful, because another feature of a Mesh-tastic is, well, the mesh. Right? It's able to communicate with other radios exactly like it, and it's able to basically send out a message. And then let's say this was another mesh radio, and this by itself couldn't reach that. So what it's going to do is it's going to transmit its message out. This is going to receive it, notice it, and then it's going to repeat it to other people. So it's able to get these messages further distance because of that, because you could basically double it or even expand it. It's good if you live in an area that has a lot of infrastructure for that. I don't personally live in an area like that, so I haven't seen much benefit from these. But if you've got a lot of infrastructure around you, a lot of people using mesh radios, I can imagine a big city would have that. You can really see the benefit of it. You can get messages across the city or even further. So that's what makes those systems unique and pretty good. So this is going to be digital now. I'm going to go to digital radio now. So this is what I'm going to use to represent a digital radio. I wouldn't really go around using these types of radios as the Motorola XTS 2500. I think it's a bit of a waste of money for what most people would want to do with a radio, but I like it personally. I like the P25 and I like the hardware encryption, but that's more for like business band stuff or for business licenses. But anyway, these two here are very similar. In looks, I mean, they both got a keypad on them, both got like a little dot matrix screen or whatever, but they are internally very different. This is a P25 radio. This is an analog radio. So what does that mean? Analog radio kind of makes it go, it makes a wave, right? It's able to take your voice and impart it onto that wave, so that now anybody who can read that wave can demodulate that wave and make it back into your voice. That's how these work. How these work is, basically you talking comes out as like a 1 or a 0 at it, whatever data throughput, like in whatever modulation it puts on it. So what's good about that is someone with this radio can't hear you with this type of radio. Here is a DM1701. This is a DMR radio. This is what I would recommend. I would probably call more like entry-level DMR. It doesn't do encryption to the same standard as like some of the other, like especially this one. This one is like AES 256-bit encryption, like the NSA rated encryption that's got on it. But this here is a DM1701. It is a Baofeng DMR radio. So what's good about that is that it can do DMR. So in the thought process being that most people, if you're gonna run into somebody else or other people are using radios and you don't want them to listen to you, most ham people are going to be using something similar to this, an analog radio, because it's got the most infrastructure around it. Generally speaking, there is some places like where hams do use DMR or they do use Yaesu System Fusion or like D-Star or something. So you'll have to know what area, and if you wanted to have a little bit of privacy, you can use DMR, and you're not going to be breaking the rules on the ham frequencies by doing that. You're going to might upset some people, I guess, but you can use these on those frequencies. There's no restriction against it. It's an open system. But if someone does have a DMR radio, they can listen to you. Some people might not want that. So it's also extremely, comparatively cheap. I think this was like $40, maybe $50. This one's going to burn you over 200, I think like the minimum. And this one, I think I said before 15. So it's kind of a jump up in system. But with this, you get a lot of you're closer to this probably than you are to that, just in terms of like what you can actually like do in theory. But these are, I believe, probably what most people don't like. Most people don't need more than this. There is the UV380 Pro, I believe, the TYT radio. That's a really good radio. Probably throw a picture of it somewhere. That's a very good radio. If you were going to get any type of radio like this, I wouldn't recommend getting these Baofeng ones. That's what I'd recommend you getting. They're around $100, but they do offer AES 256-bit encryption, and they're more, I think they're more similar in size to the UV5R without the battery pack extension. They're more similar to that size, but they're DMR, like I said, so you can use 256-bit encryption. And I think Baofeng, like the UV32, which is supposed to look like a Motorola APX, I think, radio, those are good, but I've heard that there is some issues with the actual like encryption standard they use, and they don't use what actually encrypted. Like there is like some parts in the message that aren't like able to be, or that are like issues with it, how they handle it. I don't really know, but most people I believe should get if you want to get DMR and you want to get encryption, that is going to take more to set up, but the UV380 Pro, that's probably going to be your best radio. I don't have one, but I think they're going to be a really good radio system to get started on because they've got that encryption. And if it is software encryption, unlike the Motorola's, a lot of time more hardware encryption, but that's just a whole nother step up in complexity. That makes your encryption a little bit stronger, but I think that most people, like 99% of people who want to get into radio and who would want to have an encrypted radio for whatever situation you guys want to believe in, that's probably where you should, that's like the highest I would go. You could go into like the APX Motorola systems and stuff like that, but it's an exponential growth in terms of like hardware and stuff, because if you get like those radios, a repeater for that will run thousands of dollars. I'm pretty sure DMR repeaters are a little bit cheaper than that, and analog repeaters are the cheapest possible. Like you can go kind of like in that, because as it goes up in complexity. Another type of radio system that I would recommend that you definitely need a license for would be something like HF. This is a Xiegu X6100, but what's super cool about this type of radio system is that it's HF. So you do need a license to operate in the HF spectrum, and it's a little bit more It's a little bit, it's also, you need the general class license as well. It's a little bit harder to get, but I believe it is worth it, because what this allows you to do is, with like a thin wire antenna, you're able to communicate thousands of miles away. I think I've got 6,000 miles. I've been able to get a lot further than any of these handhelds will be able to do at 5 watts. And I think this maxes out at 10 watts. As you can see, 10 watts, but I'm not on battery power right now. So it maxes out at 10 watts. So you're able to go really far with that, because what's going on is it's bouncing off the ionosphere, and it's in these lower frequency ranges. Similar to how sometimes you'll hear a CB trucker be able to transmit further. That's how the same system works. It bounces off the ionosphere. But again, I think most people honestly would do best with a TYT UV380 Pro, whatever. I'll throw it up again. That I think is like the most advanced radio system that you'll actually will see like benefit for, because if you keep going higher than that, eventually you're gonna, it's like again exponential. So you'll eventually reach like a peak to where it wouldn't be worth spending any more money on. Radio systems are like that, especially when you get to the really high-end ones. You could spend $1,000 on a radio that does the same thing as the Baofeng, except it's a little bit cleaner. So there's a very specifics for that. But anyway, this is my radio video, explaining radio. Try my best. If you have any questions about any of the other radio systems, I can answer those questions for you in the comments. I guess like and subscribe if you made it this far, though I doubt many people will. But if you have any questions about radio systems, you can ask them to me or in the comments, and I'll try my best to answer them. I know I covered a lot, but there is some stuff, of course, that I didn't cover. Other radio systems, other Baofeng analog radios. Like this is a 17 Pro. This is probably a little bit better than the Baofeng UV5R in terms of like what it's actually able to do. And I know it's got like a GPS on it. People say that's like a good thing, but I've never used the GPS and thought, hey, that's accurate. Like it's not really a good radio for actually using that way. But it is another system which you can use. But what's really going to boil down to is the price you're willing to spend on it, right? So if you want to get a good radio, I'm saying, like if you want to get a good radio that's able to DMR, it's able to be encrypted, UV380. Pretty much other than that, if you don't want to do those things, if you just want to have a radio to talk to people, Baofeng. It's going to be the cheapest possible option, and the best radio is a radio that you actually have to talk to people. And if you want to make these systems and stuff like that, and all your buddies don't want to spend $300, $400 on a radio, they just want to use whatever they can, they're going to be like you're going to have this nice radio like this one, but you're only going to be able to use it on the frequencies that they have access to, and you're only going to be able to use the DMR, so you wasted money on that. So that's a very important part, is infrastructure. You want to make sure that your infrastructure is able to match what you actually want to do. So that's like the mainstay of it. If you're all using analog, use analog. If you're using digital, make sure you're using the same type of digital, and then ensure that you have a radio that works with that. And if you're using the same type of encryption, make sure that your radio handles the same type of encryption the same way. Like the DM17 and the DM18, and I think other Baofeng radios, they might handle it the same way, but if you try to use this Baofeng with a different radio, DMR, like the TYT radio DMR, I'm not 100% sure if it'd work. It might not work. So be like aware of that. And if you want to get a system, I'd advise everybody get the same radio, just because it's easier to use all the same radios. So that's going to be it. My missed station radios, I don't have one currently, but they're really the same as this, except they're bigger and they're 50 watts. They're probably closer in size to this, although a little bit wider, but they are able to do higher wattages, so those could be useful as repeaters. You can use them, set them up somewhere and have them, I know some of them even have like dual VFOs to where you're able to use them as a repeater, so those could be very useful as well. I personally have never needed to use a repeater. I've got local repeaters that I am able to use, so just use those. But if you want to go in with backpacking and you wanted to have a repeater at like a campsite or something like that, or if you're going on an RV trip like that or something like that and you wanted to use a repeater, you can build your own out of a radio like that. So most people, like I said this before, most people, this is fine. Some people who want to use this type of radio, almost nobody's going to probably be using a type of radio like this. So that's going to be, that's it.